What's the weird thing going on with your body that isn't weird enough to go to the doctor for? Before we start, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next videos. I wish you a pleasant viewing experience. Story 1. Weird but mostly harmless. If I am startled awake by anything, I am extremely nauseated for about 30 minutes afterward. If I wake up from my alarm, this does not happen. Edit. Some people have said they don't get why the alarm doesn't cause this, and I think it's just my body knowing it's expecting to be awakened at this time, so it's not startling me as much as, say, someone barging in the room. Story 2. Sometimes I get a twitch in my stomach that feels like what my kid felt like kicking. I am not pregnant. I haven't been pregnant for almost 5 years now. It is probably gas, but it freaks me out every time because like, oh no, am I pregnant? LOL. Story 3. My hands and feet are completely unable to keep warm by themselves, even when inside. In warmer climates, it's not a problem, but from late autumn to early spring, my hands will get inexplicably cold to the point of people telling me that my hands are even colder than the room. I've heard a few times that it could be a blood pressure thing, but it doesn't seem big enough to go to the doctor with. Story 4. I had sinus surgery a year ago. Best decision ever. Opened up my sinuses and I can breathe better than I have in decades. Has majorly cut my instances of sinus infections and other nasal issues. I'll always have some issues, but they're so much easier to deal with. But my super fun new symptom is that sometimes when I tip my head, water runs out of my nose. It is not a CSF leak as I have no other symptoms, and it's not frequent enough. It's just a byproduct of chronic rhinitis, watery discharge finally being able to leave my sinuses versus staying trapped until it becomes infection. Still, it's rather gross to suddenly have a bunch of water just bloop out my nose if I tip my head. Story 5. Guys, if you're fainting or your head is exploding into migraines all the time or your hand stops working, that is a good reason to go to the doctor. I opened this thread expecting to see, sometimes I sneeze a lot, not I am quiet often in excruciating pain. Come on, dudes. Some migraines are treatable, and just because normal pain medication didn't help doesn't mean nothing else will. If you're randomly losing consciousness, that's not normal and not good. Your hand is kind of important. Maybe you ought not just immediately give up on it. Story 6. You know how sometimes if you squeeze pimples, shear blackheads out, comes a tiny hard white yellowish stone? The thing that was blocking the pore? Well, my body recently produced 2 tiny, shiny, smooth, 1 millimeter big pinkish pearls. It looked 100% like a super miniature pearl. Guess I am turning into an oyster. Story 7. Not sure if it counts, but when I use earphones, the ones with a silicone tip which goes inside the ear like an IEM, for extended periods of time, my ear starts to get wet, which makes the tips of the earphones wet, which makes the dirt stick to them more easily, and makes cleaning them a bit difficult. I don't use in-ear earphones anymore. Story 8. Sometimes my right ear, primarily, just goes deaf with a high-pitched sound. It lasts less than 30 seconds and my hearing is normal again. I kept a record of the frequency that it happened and shared it with an ENT. He didn't seem concerned and saw nothing wrong with my ears or hearing. Additionally, my left ear sometimes has painful fluid buildup, and I have to click my jaw to release the pressure. Weirdly, by doing this, I seem to have resolved the weird deafening ring described above. Lastly, my tinnitus is constant and varies in degree. Occasionally, I get these loud clicks that sound like an insect clicking at my ear. My ears are fun. Edit also. I choke on liquids a lot, like daily. My friend jokes that my tubes are all messed up, but she might have a point. If my head is tilted back just a little bit, I'll choke when drinking. Not sure if I'm inhaling at the wrong time or what. Just this morning, I choked on my own saliva like I have many times before. Story 9. 30 at barium. Sometimes my heart beats extremely hard for like 3-4 beats. I don't know how to explain the feeling. It's like my chest sinks in, and those 3-4 beats are like super sensible. I always panic a little as well. Then it's back to normal. Obviously, I have never experienced a heart attack, but I imagine it is what it would feel like. It doesn't occur regularly. Maybe 1 to 2 times a year. I had this happen since I can remember. And the thing is, I did sports in school. I regularly went to sports doctors who did heart checks, EKGs, blood tests, and whatnot, and nothing showed up ever. No heart problem in my family either. So I guess when it's time, it will be time. Story 10. I can't burp so often, get really annoying gurgling sounds in my throat and chest. Can make me feel very sick as well, especially if I've had something like beer. Always thought I was just weird, but then met my now wife who has the same problem. We Googled it, and apparently it's a real thing. Felt slightly vindicated about the fact I sometimes used to throw up after 2-3 pints back when I used to go out every weekend, and people just assumed I was a gigantic lightweight. Story 11. Probably something I should go to the doctor for TBH LOL. I'm concerned I might have a mild form of narcolepsy, but it could also just be lack of quality sleep. Unsure. I've never been told I snore, so I don't think it's sleep apnea, but a sleep study might be in order. Some people have that midday crash, but mine seem like sleep attacks. I'll just be sitting on the couch and suddenly my eyes get super heavy and I become less and less functional until I finally pass out, or I get a headache if I force myself to stay awake until it passes where it's not appropriate to sleep like work. If I opt for a nap or the sleep wins, I wake up feeling super hot with a weird flushy feeling across my brain that kind of feels good. Story 12. On the off chance that anyone sees this and can relate, a friend pointed out while we were camping that my pee bubbles on the ground while theirs disappears completely. Weird, and laughed it off. We had been drinking heavily after all. I noticed again when I was sober. Wow, my blood pressure was high. Everyone, go to your doctor for this. Don't die because you're a fanny. I actually posted about it a while ago. View on my post history with more details if anyone really wants a read. Story 13. In my case, I went to the doctor for what I thought was an annoying but common enough problem, but then came out having almost every weird and nonsensical medical happenstance I've encountered explained with one condition. Back in August of last year, I somehow managed to sprain my ankle while stepping off a curb, and when it still hadn't healed after 4 months, I was recommended a physical therapist. After a few months of that, we realized I was hypermobile in all my joints, and that it may be that I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. When he described some of the symptoms, it was like every weird little medical puzzle piece in my life suddenly snapped into place. Turns out randomly dislocating your leg out of your hip socket while bike riding isn't something a typical 16-year-old's body should be able to do. Getting bruises that you have no idea how or when they got there, shockingly, isn't part of the average human experience. Sure, I mostly have it under control now, but 8-year-old me probably shouldn't have been dealing with the digestion issues I had. And yeah, maybe I am just tired because I'm an American living in the year 2025, but maybe it's okay to finally admit that my constant fatigue might be medical in nature. There's not a cure for it, and to be frank, with the way things are going, I'm a little worried about having it officially diagnosed and what that might mean for my insurance in the future, but man, it would explain a lot. Story 14. I can't bend my thumb without my index finger bending as well. Happens automatically as if they're connected. And when my hands get too wet, shrinkly, I can't touch 90% of textures. My one wet hand touching the other is the absolute worst. And I have to wait until they're back to their normal state to touch anything, really. Story 15. I have to be very careful to eat enough food every day, or I'll get a really bad headache, and it feels like my organs are failing, honestly. Like I'm constantly on the brink of dying from starvation. I think it's something like hypoglycemia, but I've never had it confirmed or anything. If I don't eat enough, then sometimes I'll go to bed with just a tiny headache, and if I ignore it, it gets worse, and then I get nauseous. My go-to solution is to take a few ibuprofen and eat a bowl of oatmeal. By the time I'm done eating, I feel right as rain, so it's either the painkiller, the food, a combination of both, or just the passage of time that's making me better. Who knows? I'm sure this sounds like a ridiculous issue to most people, but the reason it's a problem for me is that my body doesn't give me the hungry signal at the right time for some reason. If I'm not careful to keep track of when I ate to know when I should eat next, then my only heads up is the previously mentioned headache and nausea. Making things worse is the fact that for me, hunger and appetite are two completely separate things, so there can be times where I definitely need to eat food, but I guess my mouth or stomach just doesn't feel like it at the moment, and if I try to force myself to eat, then my throat closes up. Story 16. I get excruciating pains in my head. I've heard them described as ice pick headaches. I went to the doctor years ago, and he made me feel like I was overreacting to temporarily debilitating pain in my head. Literally 1 to 3 seconds at most. It's been happening ever since. Maybe 20 years, but nothing ever escalates, so I just live with it. Story 17. Diarrhea for 5 months. Seriously, this happened to me last year too. Went to a gastroenterologist. I was weighed, he prodded my stomach a bit, and then just shrugged his shoulders, patted me on my back, and said, "Call if you need anything." I asked him if I shouldn't give a stool sample or something, and was met with a blank stare. And that was it. So I'm not even bothering going in this time. I can weigh myself at home without having to wait in a pathogen, stuffed waiting room and pay someone $25. Story 18. So for the last several months, every night anywhere between after midnight and around 6 a.m., my face, ears, and or neck will get hot and flushed, and I cannot figure out why. Sometimes it's just one ear or my chin or a couple patches here and there on my face and neck. I can't link it to any foods or medications, and it just started suddenly one day and happens literally every night that I am awake during those hours. It's so strange. Story 19. My food, mind you, without stomach acid at all, after eating sometimes comes up a little in my mouth, unless I reflexively breathe to prevent that, or when I tilt my head to e.g. wash my hands or smishay. As it isn't a reflux syndrome due to the lack of stomach acid, I suppose my food just stays a little longer in my esophagus before entering my stomach, at least when I eat a certain amount. Physical stimulus sometimes makes it then go the other way around. Story 20. I need to crack every joint in my body fairly regularly. Ranges from once a day to multiple times a day. Hands, feet, knees, ankles, shoulders, hips, back. If it bends, I need to crack it, or I feel really weird. I end up contorting myself into weird positions to do it, but it's actually so satisfying. Story 21. My inner ears are chronically, painfully itchy. I didn't use Q-tips when it started last year, but after a few months of the itchiness, I started to, and it hasn't made it any worse. Should be better, but it provides some momentary relief. Sometimes I wake myself up, scratching my ear in my sleep. I don't have a fungal infection as my ears do not have gunk in them, but sometimes they do get wet, especially when I use earplugs or in-ear headphones. I've heard this is a symptom of menopause, but I'm only 25. Story 22. I've been trying for years to get someone to take me seriously. You know when you sit on hot leather seats and shorts for a couple HRs, and when you go to get up, it feels like you are ripping skin off of your thighs? That's what I feel in my uterus when I stand up sometimes. It's crippling and brings me to my knees. First they said, oh, it's your period. It happened even when I wasn't on my period. So they put me on birth control to not have periods. Then they said it's because I need to lose weight. But this has been happening to me even when I was 115 lbs as a teen. They examined my ovaries and said they were cystic and left it at that. Now they are blaming the birth control. Story 23. Not me, but my husband has the worst breath. I mean, foul like Shrek is fresher than him. Swear the first day we met I offered him gum because it was stinking up my car. It hasn't gotten better after years. People frequently offer him mints because they smell it too. He doesn't smoke or drink alcohol and his oral hygiene is okay. I mean, he flosses and brushes at least once a day and uses mouthwash frequently, but it makes no difference. It's foul. He does drink lots of black tea, no coffee, and has a very healthy diet. IDK, what to even do at this point. Story 24. From time to time, when I hear voices that are lower pitched, I get what feels like a pulsing in one of my ears. It switches sides. That pulses in time to the person speaking. Like if they're quiet, it stops, and it stops between words. But anytime they say a word, I get a weird pulse. It's not painful, but it is an uncomfortable sensation. And if I press behind and under my ear, it's less, but still present. It's not a heartbeat, but feels like a physical pulse. I've wondered if it's my eardrum reacting for some reason, but I can't reliably reproduce the effect since it's so inconsistent. So I just deal with it. Story 25. I have a pore on my neck that leaks a clear, odorless fluid every so often. It also sometimes has a weirdly stringy hair that I can pull out of it, and when I do, I know it'll leak again for a few minutes. It's never painful, and my best guess is I just have a hair follicle that produces a hair incorrectly, and once the hair comes out, it lets out a few drops of this fluid. Sometimes, though, I'll just touch my neck, and I realize I'm leaking. I call it my porthole, and only my spouse knows about it. Story 26. Both of my hands go numb randomly on a daily basis. I'm pretty sure I have carpal tunnel in my left, which what I attributed the numbness to, but then my right started doing it. It happens even when I'm actively using both hands. So IDK, what's going on? Please don't tell I'm dying though, because I have severe health anxiety and I'd rather just ignore it. Story 27. It only happens to me maybe like 2 or 3 times a year, but occasionally some small bones in my foot just randomly slips out of joint. It's the weirdest kind of pain I've ever felt, like simultaneously so excruciating, you instantly freeze up and can't move a muscle. And then when the shock subsides, it quickly ebbs to like, meh. And sometimes one of my toes will be sticking out at a weird angle too. But if I tread gently on the arch of my foot with the other foot or massage it gently with my fingers, it'll pop back in again. Most often happens when I'm in the shower, although not 100% of the time. It's occasionally happened with my hip during it too. I have to freeze, maneuver myself carefully off my partner, and gently move my legs together slowly, and it'll pop back in and be a-okay. I don't have a connective tissue disorder, that I know of, lol, and I'm not particularly flexible. Oh, and I sometimes get optical migraines, which are really annoying. Story 28. My jaw is clenched all the time. Even when I try to actively relax and release it, it's always clenching, and I can't. It causes headaches all the time, and jaw fatigue and severe neck pain. I actually have been to the doc for this multiple times. They just told me to relax or take anxiety meds, but it happens when I'm just chilling too, not when I'm anxious. Story 29. I have terrible night sweats, like dripping sweat. Doctors all say I'm too young, 44, for the big pause, dismiss perimenopause, test my thyroid levels, my hormone levels, and tell me everything is fine. Everything is not fine. I'm drenched. The sheets are drenched. The mattress. I'm just a disgusting human being, and the docs give me a pat on the ass and send me on my way. Story 30. Sorry. I think I have a rock in my knee. 6-ish months ago, my dog saw a squirrel and took off with me holding the leash, which made me Looney Tunes style fly through the air, land on my side, roll to my back, and I got dragged about 10-15 feet. It happened so quickly that I wasn't even aware of how I'd fallen or WTF was even going on until I skidded to a stop. When I checked myself over, I had a scrape on my knee, on my ankle twinged a bit, and my back had gotten a bit shredded. All in all, I was perfectly fine, right? But ever since then, the knee that had the scrape has been bugging me in the weirdest, most specific way. It's perfectly functional. It doesn't hurt to put weight on it or to walk, crouch, squat, etc. I still have full mobility. It doesn't look out of the ordinary or hurt to touch. I can't feel anything strange when I rub it, no lumps or anything, but if I kneel on it just right at just the right angle, it feels like I'm kneeling on glass, and it hurts like hell. Story 31. I sweat too much. I can be sitting at my desk working on an Excel spreadsheet, and my head will be dripping with sweat. I don't like leaving the house anymore because I get a sweaty head and face when standing for more than 3 minutes. I have a really nice neck fan that I wear with me when I go out, which helps a lot, but I still feel sweaty, and it's embarrassing. The sweat feels different than the kind of sweat I get when I'm actually exercising and should be sweating. It feels a bit lighter and more watery, and it doesn't smell like sweat. I haven't been to the doctor because I know that it's likely caused by one of my medications, and there aren't really any treatments, and I'm guessing the doctor's going to just tell me to exercise more. Which, yes, I need to exercise more, but dripping sweat while I'm sitting down is not normal or fixed by needing to exercise more. I know this because I've had the same problem for years, even when I exercised more and weighed less than I do now. Story 32. I'm 27 now, but ever since I was 13, I have these extremely sharp pains in my left shoulder that hinder me completely useless for the minute or two that they occur. And I can't do anything when they happen. I'm motionless and in pain grabbing my shoulder. I mentioned it to doctors in the past, but never got anywhere, so I assumed it was just a weird body thing. Story 33. I've been told it could be my rotator cuff by coworkers, but my shoulders have always been very crunchy and weak ever since I was a young kid. I can't hold my arms above my head for more than a few minutes without them feeling fatigued, sore, but it's not severe or anything. Also feels like gravel when I try rotating my shoulders, ha ha ha. Not sure if the doctor could really do anything for it though. I'm just a crunchy lady. Story 34. My ears feel like they have a bubble in them that distorts my hearing, and if I pinch my nose and suck in while doing it, the bubble pulls back and makes it so I can hear normally. It's been like this forever, and my husband will even pinch my nose for me to help from time to time. I have no idea why this is, but it doesn't hurt or anything, and I'm in the USA, so I can't afford to find a fix to it. Story 35. I have irregular insomnia issues. I generally don't have a problem falling asleep, but staying asleep is an issue. I'll sleep for 3 to 4 hours, then I'm wide awake. So I get up, drink coffee, play some video games for a few hours until I'm tired enough to take a nap before work. Sometimes the nap helps. Sometimes I don't even sleep, just lay there. Even taking melatonin and sleeping pills doesn't help because they just help me fall asleep, which I can already do. Then they make me feel drowsy all day. Last night I got a whole 6 hours of sleep, which is the most I've had consecutively in like a month, if not more. Story 36. When I arch my back and give my whole body a good stretch, my vision and hearing cut out, and I get dizzy for a second. I had to ask someone to repeat something they said because I was stretching and couldn't hear you. She was like, "What does stretching have to do with hearing?" So yeah, I guess that's not normal. Now I just always stretch while laying or sitting down so I don't fall. Story 37. Sometimes I get flashes of light behind my eyes as I fall asleep, often with accompanying sounds that may or may not be real when I open my eyes. Started in college after a seizure in the wee hours of the morning, resulted in a fight against the bathroom sink. The sink won, and I had people asking me if my boyfriend beat me up at class. Poking around the internet says I likely have exploding head syndrome. I manage things pretty well, though, by sleeping with white noise, minimizing other random sounds, and blocking as much light as possible at night. I don't see much point in getting diagnosed because it's not the biggest problem I deal with day to day. Story 38. I can hear a click sound coming from what seems like my throat, back of the tongue, usually when I'm laying down on my back, very relaxed. I can only hear it when it's very quiet in the room, so it's not like something others can hear. Also, randomly, my right cheek feels wet, like I'm sweating there in the middle of my cheek for no reason. I'll touch one side of my face and it will be dry, but the other side is damp, sheer, tacky. Story 39. When I sleep on my side, it feels like my left side in the middle of my ribs dips inwards. It is really uncomfortable, feeling different, but equally causing discomfort, whether I sleep on my left or right. I can also feel that there's a shallow dip if I am sitting up or standing. I have mentioned it at the doctors, but they've said nothing is wrong. So just accepting that sometimes when I go to sleep, I will be up for ages as I try to ignore the discomfort. Story 40, I had a wisdom tooth extraction in my lower jaw, and when the dentist used local anesthesia, he penetrated through my alveolar nerve instead of putting the anesthesia close to it. For the next couple of years, every time I sneezed, the tip of my tongue would itch. The nerves had cross-fused, and I guess it took my brain some time to figure it out. Story 41. My sweat has smelled like toffee for the past few years. My blood sugar is normal. Also, sometimes I get these small, few millimeters, hard bubbles on the inside of my cheek, inner lip. They're like little balls and not on the surface like blisters, but deeper. They hurt and get better when I bite through them. Blood comes out, it stops hurting immediately and heals. It's been happening since I was a child. Story 42. My left ear gets plugged up with earwax or something when I lay down, especially when I lay on my left side. If I lay on my left, it happens within minutes. If I'm on my back, it might take an hour or two. If I'm laying on my right side, usually won't happen. Getting up will usually resolve it in just a few moments, but once it happens, it'll happen again a lot faster, if I lay back down within a few minutes. And the problem literally never happens on my right ear. It's always just the left that gets plugged up. Story 43. I hear a weird squelching noise when I use a little sponge to dab concealer on the spot that's kind of my inner eyelid, right next to my nose, but only on one side. It's as though there's an air bubble which is being compressed when I press the sponge down. Super creepy, but I have slightly more vanity than squeamishness, so I carry on with the makeup. Story 44. I have like sleep apnea, but while I'm awake, I will suddenly realize that I haven't inhaled in a while, and I have to take a really deep breath or yawn. It causes me to have really uncomfortable tightness in my chest, and it's hard to breathe psychologically afterwards for several minutes, until I do some yoga breaths, and then once the tightness releases, and I sufficiently distract myself to the point where I stop thinking about breathing, it eventually goes back to normal. It's cyclical. Story 45. This doesn't happen to me anymore, but when I was a kid trying to fall asleep, I'd go through this brief period where my perception of my body would get all messed up. Like I would feel like my extremities or sometimes my whole body would feel too big for the space I was in. They would also feel kind of weightless, like I was a balloon being puffed up. I'd open my eyes expecting to see big balloon feet or something, but of course everything would be totally normal. Story 46, my time to shine, but probably too late to the party. I believe one of the muscles that moves my right eye popped off 5 to 10 years ago. Now, if my head is tipped to the left, everything is fine. But if my head is upright or tipped to the right, my eye points upward. Either eye on its own can focus on a desired location, but together they can't make it happen, especially if the target is 20 plus feet away. If I wear sunglasses and hold my head upright, the image from my right eye isn't level, so I can't gauge level very well. My wife hates watching me hang a picture, so I bought a short plastic level. Story 47. Whenever I run outside in the cold, my gums and teeth hurt and taste like blood. I also get small patches of hives for no apparent reason almost daily. Sometimes when I exercise outside in the cold, the hives get unbearable and cover my whole lower body and torso. I've told doctors this, and they have no explanation. I've done allergy testing and didn't react to anything. Only solution is to take antihistamines. Story 48. It hasn't happened much in the last 5 to 7 years, but probably once every couple months when I jerk my head suddenly or just move my neck in some way, There'd be a popping sound in my head with sudden pressure, always felt like it was happening on the surface of my brain, and then a warming feeling, almost like a dripping warming feeling. The sudden pop wasn't exactly painful, but definitely jarring and uncomfy. Everyone looks concerned when I try to describe this. Story 49. I got skier's toe snowboarding at the end of February. My boots were too small apparently, causing both of my big toenails to get badly bruised. Both of them are almost entirely black. It hurts a little bit, not a truly concerning amount. Now I'm just waiting for the new nail to grow in, so the old one can either grow out or fall off. We'll see what happens. But it'll be months BC my toenails grow so slowly. Story 50, I didn't see the doctor about my knees that would dislocate from time to time throughout my whole life until I had a big injury related to it this past fall. That resulted in me seeing the orthopedist several times, getting an MRI, doing weekly PT, etc., ultimately spending thousands on my care and recovery, and now having chronic pain and learning that my knee cartilage is permanently eroded. I so wish I'd gone sooner. Story 51, I can't sleep for more than 3-4 hours straight. I tried everything: exercise, sleeping pills, cannabis, masturbation, binaural sounds, melatonin. A lot of the time my eyes can be tired and want to just shut it, but my brain is wide awake. Lately, I have been extra sleepy for some reason, but I just doze off for a couple of hours before waking up again. Sometimes I feel dizzy. Most of the time, I'm good to go. Story 52. I've had this feeling come and go in my chest since I was a little kid. My GP says it's anxiety, but it is certainly not. I used to call it the little man in my chest when I was a kid because it felt like there was something walking around in there. Anyway, how I describe it now, it's like a sudden sharp pain and the inability to breathe for a very short time, and then it goes away. No GP has ever even bothered to give me an answer that isn't anxiety. Story 53. When something makes me cringe or feel nauseous, I feel it in my neck, under my chin feels just wrong, like it's going to fall off, and then I have to adjust my head to make the feeling tolerable. Also get stabbing pains throughout the week in many parts of my body, excruciating for a few moments, then gone. Story 54. For seemingly no reason my heart rate spikes, I feel like I'm going to pass out, then I sneeze twice and all symptoms begin to lift. Always the same. Always 2 sneezes. Not the same kind of sneeze I do when dust gets in my nose. The whole episode from beginning of symptoms to the end is roughly 3 to 5 minutes. Except instead of not going to the doctor for it, I wore a heart monitor for a month and didn't end up having any episodes during that time. I've told every single medical professional I've been near since it started. They all look at me like I'm crazy. This all started after I got my thyroid removed due to 8 years of undiagnosed thyroid cancer, which has to be a contributing factor. Story 55, I sometimes find a single dark black hair on either the inside of my forearm or on the right side of my chin. All my other body hair is brown, and these 2 random, really dark hairs don't appear anywhere else on my body. When I pluck the one on my chin, it eventually grows back in the same place, while the one that shows up on my forearm seems to change location slightly, and I swear I can feel a sting when it breaches the surface of the skin. I've got no idea why or how this happens. Story 56, icy hand of death appears in my chest and grasps my heart within its claws. It is called precordial catch syndrome. It is harmless except for the psychological damage it does to you for having nothing show up in blood work or x-rays. You'll be lying down, start to move, breathing counts, and intense pressure, pain. You'll try to avoid moving or taking deep breaths. When it subsides, it rapidly fades, and after it passes, everything goes back to normal so quickly you feel like you're gaslighting yourself. I went undiagnosed my whole life until I read about someone else having it on Reddit. It only rarely happens too, and usually it happens while lying down. You can go months or even years before the next little episode. I wrote description first in hopes someone else going undiagnosed finds this. It is fine. There's no fixing it though. Just randomly, you're going to feel like you're about to have your heart implode for a minute or so if you move. Stay still. Move. It doesn't matter. You'll be okay. It happens much less often to me as an adult, and less still as I have healthier habits. I don't lie in bed unless I'm going to sleep. I work on my feet, cycle, hike, and I do strength training. I haven't had one in over a year, and I probably won't think about it until it happens, or someone inquires regarding this comment. XD, Story 57. I don't have a sense of smell, and never have. Never got an official answer for it, but my upper jaw was too narrow, to the point I couldn't breathe through my nose, and I had chronic sinus infections, colds, etc. growing up. Around middle school, I got a palate expander to fix my jaw, but it never developed. Skunks, BO, fertilizer, farts, nothing. But that includes all the good smells too. Story 58. Some weird things I've had throughout my life. I don't have MCP joints on both of my thumbs. Never realized it until a few years ago. I only have the upper joint under my nail and then the one at the base TMC. From around 14 years old, I had a very weird feeling that never got explained. If I stood straight and then bent my neck up and looked up, I would get this intense feeling of something. It felt good though. And then I would feel very weird after, like getting really high for a few seconds and then having bad headache after. The headache always lasted longer than the good feeling though. I never told my parents about it, just my friends. I have experienced weird bouts of intense pain on the left side of my chest for the last 10 years or so. I have gone to the doctor and worn a device over my heart, but they never found anything. It might just be anxiety, but its weird cause, it would just flare up randomly. Very sharp pain right above my left nipple and slightly more toward the center of my chest, sometimes below the nipple. It's always like a singular point of sharp pain. It can last from a few minutes to an hour or two. I've been told it's anxiety, but it's not like it's triggered by it. It does scare me a lot when I start to feel the pain. Lastly, when I drive through tunnels, the lights, I'm not sure how to describe it, but the lights cause me to feel very sick. It's every tunnel I've ever been in. Like the lights are spaced out in a way, and maybe the pillars of my car block them a certain way. But I either have to wear sunglasses when going through tunnels, even at night, or just lock in and try not to pass out. Story 59, I always sneeze before going to sleep. Like 5 minutes later, I'm asleep. It's how Dad always knew I was awake at night as a child, teen Lowell. I could lay down all I wanted in bed until it was time for sleep, then I'd sneeze. I always joke I'm allergic to sleep. Occasionally get auditory hallucinations, mostly random noises. Rarely noises like in a crowded room you could make out anything, but it sounds similar to many people talking at once but muffled. Very rarely it's people screaming my name in desperation, like GTF, away from their now shit's on fire kind. After a head injury, I occasionally see smoke in the corner of one of my eyes and it annoys the hell out of me. Already seen a DR. Story 60. Actually have been to the doctor before, but need to go back, but can't afford it because America's great now. My entire left arm, from the shoulder down, tingles, goes numb, and generally feels like it's not there a lot of the time. It has something to do with deterioration and nerves being pinched in my spine, but the sensation kind of constantly makes me feel like I'm not in reality because I can't feel my arm. Nieto, story 61, I have two things. One, I sneeze every time I step outside, and it's not a normal sneeze. I've counted up to 30 continuous sneezes. My mother, siblings, and nieces and nephews all experience the same thing. Everyone in our family knows to wait until all the sneezes are out before saying bless you. Two, also among the same sneezy family members, we get lockjaw from something that has too much flavor. Like I freeze up until it passes. I guess people would describe it as brain freeze, only I've never had brain freeze before, so I can't say for sure if it's accurate. Story 62. If I'm congested and blow my nose, air comes out my eyes. I have to hold the inner corners of my eyes closed so air doesn't escape. It's not painful, just weird. Related. If my eyes are puffy and I lightly press them from the outer corner, I hear this squishy wet noise under my eyes and in my sinuses. It's weird. Story 63. Every time I get up from the bed, my Achilles heels and calves hurt like hell. This is because I like jumping up and down while listening to music, and it's the only workout I am able to do. I fear I am slowly destroying my body and trying not to do it, but it's the only thing that brings me joy. I really should go to a therapist about my depression and stick to an upper body workout regime. I am slightly overweight with great legs, LMAO, but I keep putting it off. I also have a weighted blanket. Don't know if that's bad for your legs long term. Not really a weird body thing. I know the reason behind it. I just can't bring myself to get help, and it's honestly so... I wonder if other people struggle with this as well. Story 64, October of 2023. I ended up in the hospital from having what I thought was a seizure. It felt like what I've heard people describe them as. I was told it was probably a panic attack and that I'm fine since my blood work came back normal. Since then, I get these weird auras nearly every day that feel like what the beginning of my big fit was like. But a big one hasn't happened again. They've gradually gotten less strong over time, but I still get that weird feeling creeping in that I have to either stand up and walk around or shock myself with cold water. It feels like my brain is glitching temporarily. I've had 2 panic attacks due to job stress that stopped after I quit years ago. They felt like how people describe them. This other thing felt nothing like that. I don't go to the doctor because they just say it's anxiety. Despite being rarely anxious these days, I get scared I have a brain tumor or something and no one listens. Oh well. Story 65. Sometimes I feel like I've been flipped upside down. I don't have to be moving or standing either. It happens when I'm laying down or sitting perfectly still. I don't know what triggers it, but it also happens in my sleep. And the feeling that blood is rushing to my head wakes me up immediately with my heart racing and my head will start pounding and I feel like I'd fallen out of bed despite being against the wall. Actually, it usually happens when I'm sitting or laying down, even if I'm wide awake and not sick. I've asked my mom if this is normal, and she says it's just vertigo. Story 66. A random spot on my hairline just started hurting, like it had a scalp pimple with nothing there. Lasted for like a week. If I blow my nose, my lower eyelid gets air trapped in it, and I have to press it and do a little eyelid fart to get it out. No matter how much I scrub my heels in the bathroom, the skin still wants to peel off in layers and leave me with raw spots there, and there exists no shoe which doesn't give me a raw spot somewhere on my foot. Recently, I've been able to feel my skin too much. Even touching my phone or my fingers touching each other makes me feel insane. There is no way for me to shave, wax, or epilate without getting ingrown hairs. And they run parallel to the skin, so you can see them just growing, but I'd have to break the skin to get them. So even if I shave, part of my legs look hairy because of the ingrowns. Then once I shave, epilate, even with scrubbing, I get the itchiest red bumps ever when they start growing back. That's the short list. Story 67. I'm old, mid-40s. I grew up redneck, so going to the doctor wasn't really in the cards. I've been sick with respiratory issues for the last 6 weeks. Went to a walk-in clinic after about 2-3 weeks of shallow breathing, etc. They said it was bronchitis. I got amoxicillin. 3 to 4 weeks without improvement. Went to a walk-in clinic. They said I had walking pneumonia, and I got an inhaler and a steroid. About the 5 to 6 week without improvement, I went to a regular doctor. Apparently, I have a partial collapsed lung and need to see a pulmonologist for possible tumor, cancer, or CPOD. Don't wait to go to the doctor if possible. You're not too busy to go. Make it happen. If you don't have insurance or some other bad situation, I'm so sorry. But if you could swing it, make it happen.